listeners, you're tuned in to Platzinum.com reality show, episode 5. This is Tom Platz along with Dr. Cha.
Hello, everyone.
And we have some special guests.
Yes, our special guests today are amazing, let me tell you. Kyle, who is an American citizen, but he lives in Taiwan. Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm from USA, from Texas originally. I work as a sports performance coach in Taiwan. I train some elite level athletes like baseball players, tennis players, and I've always been a long-time follower of Tom Platz, and that's why I'm on the show today.
Oh, great. And we also have Oscar, who I know is Flammy. Flammy, introduce yourself and what you're doing in my life.
Oh, well, how am I to describe myself? Well, I'm currently 27 years old. I just had my birthday. I've been living my life carefree, and there isn't really much to say about myself. I'm a video gamer. I'm also a poet, and I see life in a more a philosophical way than other people does.
Yep. And then we also have Mitch from the Netherlands. Mitch.
Hello, I'm Mitch. I'm doing high school, last year, exam year. I'm mostly doing video gaming, table tennis.
Yeah, he does a lot of table tennis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay, Kyle, do you have one question for Tom or myself?
I do.
Here it comes.
First question for Tom. One of the things that really struck me about Tom was in one of his videos, he talked about how the squat rack is the altar. And, it's where life and death, you see your life flash, before you see your life, I guess, life or death taking place in the squat rack, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that and how that came to be?
Wow.
What made you think of the squat rack being the altar?
Maybe because you're just crazy or what?
Yeah,
No, I think it's incredible.
But thanks for saying that, Kyle. I have some questions for you too later. Hopefully we'll have time. I'd like to know how you are doing what you're doing, and especially in Taiwan and coming from Texas. But to answer your question right now, I was trained by weightlifters when I was very young. And I was influenced by Norbert Szymanski, who was a gold medalist, one of the very few American gold medalists in weightlifting.
Okay, Olympic lifting.
Yes, Olympic lifting. And when I was mesmerized by the fact, and really shocked and stunned by the fact, in the early 70s, he went to compete in the Olympic Games, left his position in Detroit, where I went to college, at Ford Motor Car Company, left his position, went and won the gold medal in the heavyweight class, came back, won the gold medal in the Olympic Games, and was fired from his job for going to some stupid weightlifting thing. Okay? Meanwhile, the super heavyweight winner, Vasily Alexia, they had parades for him in what was then known as the Soviet Union,
Yes.
And he became a national hero, Vasily Alexia. So I saw that, and I was shocked by that, but then again, they taught me the influence of these guys. And Bob Morris, who is he's now in Colorado, he's an Olympic coach. These are all Olympic lifters when I was a teenager, and they taught me that you had to give it that much, and there was no playing around here. This was serious business. They put the weights on the bar for me. I should have been allowed in the gym really, as I was too young. I think I was 13 or 12, and they're like, "Okay, son, come here. This is what you're going to do. And this is how many you're going to do." And it was very, sort of shaped into how I developed from there on. But I was the kind of person that, I early on I realized that I think my father told me that you got to give it your all. Everything you do, you got to be totally spent, and no matter what, you're a winner when you leave. And so I've always decided to do that, and the squat rack became the altar because I was raised, in the Catholic faith, and I was an altar boy, it was very serious. I mean, I actually knew the Latin prayers, and I was the assistant to the priest, and I wore that thing. And so it was basically, the altar was very serious to me. And that's probably why I refer to the squat rack being my altar. It is where I really believe that life and death takes place. You give it that much. You give that much of yourself. And the feeling afterwards, as we spoke about in last night's show, is overwhelming. And it's not that I love squatting that much. It's not that I love the altar that much. I just love the high afterwards. I'm addicted to that, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, it does. I've also heard you mention, you believe squatting is like a different sport in that regard as well. I agree with that.
Well, when I was a teenager, would stand around the squat rack, and I was waiting my turn, and there were some powerlifters that were competing locally, and there were some Olympic lifters, and we all trained together. And it wasn't just like doing bench presses or back work or arms. It was like a major activity. The gym, the whole gym stopped to turn the music off, and it was all the attention and all eyes were on the squat rack. And I was like, wow, this is great, So I was really, it was influenced by in my early years from Olympic lifters, most definitely.
Oh, wow. Very good.
Thanks for asking that.
Oh, no, thanks for answering my question, Tom.
Sure.
I remember so a question for Shaw here. I remember in one of the earlier episodes, you guys mentioned that, Shaw took an exercise physiology class from you, Tom. So could Shaw give us more of a background of what she does with her, is it holistic medicine? Is what?
Okay. I'm a board-certified alternative medical practitioner.
Okay.
Right. And basically, I have a lot of paper. I have a lot of certificates. I have 10,000 hours in just one field, and that's the study of foods. And I kind of got the paper, and then when you get the paper, the diplomas, the certificates, and all that, you get to do what you want. And you're still within the law. Now, for instance, I've been mastered in Reiki ×2, just so I can do the work. And I'm one of those doctors, credentialed or otherwise. It just gives you permission to do your work. All the paper in the world, all the certificates, all the diplomas, allows you to do your work within the law of the land. Mm-hmm. And that was very important that I do which is all legal. I don't do anything underhanded or anything like that. So I got the paper so I could really be in audience with some of the best people in the industry. And like myself, they got their paper too. And some of my mentors, they have PhDs and all this. I recently received a degree in metaphysics, which I have no idea what that is, but it's an honorarium. It's just important to know that the paper, it just gives you permission to do your work legally. Mm-hmm. So primarily in my practice, and if it wasn't for Tom, we would be starving, because I never really went into becoming a holistic, a naturopath, and whatever else they call these doctors that are in the natural field, which is natural, organic, and all this is totally overrated in my book. You cannot buy the same brands and expect to get the same product, mainly because their sources are so different. So what I do is I do everything in energy, if that makes sense. Whenever we go grocery shopping, my eyes are closed, mainly because I look for the energy in the foods before we buy. And it's kind of funny because people go by brands they can trust. I get that. I shop with my eyes closed, and I don't care what brand it is. I don't care how much money it is. My body is having a good feel for this particular food product. So I take people grocery shopping, and that was one of the things that I did in practice. I just take them, and they would watch me shop, and I said, you have to feel good. If you feel a good energy from this food, then you should buy it and probably have it because your body is resonating with it. So basically what I did was I did food. And I did not get a kickback from the grocery stores that I sent people to. I got it because people got healthier, stronger, more mentally sound. We had one of our clients, and we had actually I worked with several that had autism, and he was not born autistic. He turned to become autistic when he was 18 months old. This child was never given meat like chicken or fish. And so when we got him, he was 14 years old. So he evolved into a condition, being born normal, by using the wrong foods. His mother gave him sugar on sugar on sugar, ice cream, bread, pancakes, syrup, no butter, no raw milk, no vegetables, and no meat. So he became autistic. When Tom and I worked with him, Tom would work him out in the gym area and take him outside to the ocean, and I would feed him meat and vegetables. And he, in less than a year, we reversed 80% of his autistic behavior by just human movement and by feeding him real food.
Is that what practitioners refer to as an acidic environment?
Well, they have this alkalinic, acidic, environment. I've never really believed in that. I believed in just the energy of someone's body. And some people will come across as being cross and mean, and they're acidic, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. Okay, the environment, because we have to have digestive juices that are extremely acidic, so there has to be just a balance. Everyone says, well, you need to get the alkalinic. I have a friend that constantly wants me to drink this green stuff, and I said, look, I like to chew my food. I don't want to juice everything. And that's another thing. People ask me, what do you think about juicing? And so it's basically, I became a food doctor, a food expert is what some people refer to me as, because I just do food. And I do some herbs. And instead of using sea salt, which is a big trend in the last 10 years, I use Alea salt, which is the real sea salt, mainly because it's mixed with clay. If you look at how clay comes about in Hawaii, it's from volcanic ash. It's promoted by volcanic ash. So anything that you can take a little bit of, I'm not saying go out and eat a bunch of clay. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you need a little bit of everything to really have a really calming pathway for life. And you have to, the only way you're going to have really a great outlook on life, and you're going to feel good every day, and you're going to be just exhilarated and wanting to wake up every day, is because of what you eat. It's because of what you eat. Now you've got to remember that the human body is not really smart everywhere. You don't have a brain in your mouth, you don't have a brain in your lungs, you don't have a brain in every single cell of your body. You just have a brain with a brainstem in your head. And it makes decisions because of the ability to have free will. So there are additives in processed foods that make you addicted to that processed food, like coffee, for instance. You can be addicted to a certain coffee shop because there are chemicals in there that causes a chemical addiction. No different than drugs. No different than drugs.
That explains a lot, doesn't it? Right?
It does.
Explains a lot.
You know
right
why America has gotten so fluffy is because there is additives that causes children to gravitate to a certain food establishment. And we don't normally call out names. Everyone knows what's bad. So nobody's stupid. I'm just saying that there are food additives in every single fast food chain that causes you to be stimulated to go back to get that because you just need it. And it's because the body doesn't have a brain in every single cell of the body. And it doesn't know any better. And so when I showed the video of how hamburger meat, just hamburger meat alone, is produced in this country, it makes you think about what else is in there that's causing me to need a hamburger. You know, what's causing me to eat this bread? What's causing me to eat so much of it I can't control myself? It's because there are enough additives in our foods that are processed that makes you a food addict. Seriously. That's not a joke. When I met Tom, I ate real food, and I was bouncing around him. I'm 5 years older. And Tom couldn't figure out why he was take him 20 minutes to get out of the bed. He couldn't sleep. Then he finally asked me the question. He says, what are you doing? And all I did was food. I'm very selective. I will starve before I eat bad food. And I have. When we've traveled, in certain places. And I've gone to restaurants. It could be a 5-star restaurant. And they'll put the food in front of me and I won't eat it. Because the energy from it is telling me, no, walk away. And I won't eat it. And I don't think people that are that in tune to that. So that's what I was trying to guide people to do. How do you know when to eat, when not to eat? And it's because you have to really get yourself broken away from being addicted to certain foods, and you can't figure out why, and it's bad for you. That's the worst part about it. It's like every drug addict that I've ever worked with, they know that meth is bad for them, but they're still so addicted that they just forget about how bad it is, and they have to do it anyway, right? Food is no different.
Preservatives in food, or additives.
And food does manipulate the method of process in the motor pathways in the brain. The synapsing seems to end in the brain cells really early in life. I have worked on 25 to 30-year-olds that cannot function mentally without getting really heady and nervous. So yeah, I got the paper. I've got a lot of paper if you want to see them, degree here, everywhere. It's because I wanted permission to just talk about food legally. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, it does. Very good. That's intriguing. No, it is. So I guess did you help Tom with his career when he was still a bodybuilder? With some of your advice with food?
Well, when I met Tom had been retired for about 12 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was still doing a significant amount of guest appearances, not like posing, not doing posing or anything like that, but guest appearances and speaking. When I met Tom, he had a $1,700 a month medicine bill. He had been on medicines for over 20 years when I met Tom.
You have to realize, of course, being in being in Santa Monica, the west side, in terms of Los Angeles, everybody, after the earthquake, we were all on Prozac, it was commonplace to have these kind of things prescribed. So I had to actually, when I met Cha, was like, she's like, what are you taking?
Yeah, well, he had to take, things that helped him sleep, helped him wake up, pain. He had pain. They had him on hormone replacement because his testosterone was so low. The stuff that he took a thyroid because he didn't want to get fat. And, he was taking so much stuff every month, every day for over 20 years. When I met him, it was like, when I looked at what he was taking. So what I did was, he couldn't even digest a salad. I made breakfast one morning. Sunny side up eggs, some bacon, some vegetables, a little bit of fruit, some toast with real butter and some jelly, and he couldn't eat it. It was bothering his stomach. So I knew I had to start somewhere. So when I met him at 40, he was 43 years old. He had a physical done, and he had the stature of a 67-year-old man, and he was pretty ill overall as far as day-to-day life.
It's kind of beat up.
Very beat up, yeah.
I haven't taken an aspirin or cold medication since then, any kind of over-the-counter or drug of any kind, and that's like, I haven't felt this good since I was 20, as far as clear and seeing things and not feeling things, and it's like I'm 20 years old all over again,
Mm-hmm. But it took a solid 7 months for me to get him off 80%. His doctor did call me and ask me, "What are you doing with Tom?" His values. He had another physical done, and he would call me and he says, "What are you doing with Tom? He doesn't need any of this stuff." The last medication that he hung on to was the thyroid medication. He didn't want to get fat, and I told him that you'll let it go when you're ready, and there was no hurry. Because I know that thyroid meds was now losing battle. He was not going to really feel the difference with or without it, but he had to make that decision. I didn't. So, but I haven't taken aspirin or anything over the counter in 4 decades. So for me, it was not a big deal. But for Tom, it was big. He was on meds for 20 years, you got to remember, and it's hard to let that stuff go when it was working. He looked awesome. I'll tell you that. When I met him...
Yeah, looked awesome. Did feel terrible.
Yeah, he looked really awesome. Really awesome. But his smile never reached his eyes. And he felt... And when he'd come home from a guest appearance, he would just literally be just completely wasted.
So you have to realize aspirin was like my fifth food group, whether I needed it or not.
He took it
every day. I mean, during my competitive years, maybe 8 a day, 8,
Yeah.
What do they call the Anacin and the red box or yellow box, whatever it was.
Motrin and all that stuff, yeah. So, Tom, it didn't take much convincing because he would look at me. And that's what I tell people. When you're taking advice or guidance from a professional, look at the professional that's talking to you. Are they just talking the talk? Are they actually walking the walk? Are they doing what they're suggesting to you themselves? And I've had several clients say, "Oh, my medical doctor had a heart attack," and I said, "Well, how did he look? Was he, lean? Did he go to the gym?" They said he looked horrible, and I said, "But you're doing everything this person is suggesting to you, and he's not walking the walk. So how does he know it works?"
Absolutely. There's a saying that goes, "Your body is your business card."
Exactly.
In this field.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And for my particular age group, I tell people, just make sure you look at, if you like what you see and you'd like to have a little piece of that, you'd like to at least come into your own at that level, then listen to what people have to say. It's really hard on me because when we go on a tour or something, most of the time I don't speak, mainly because they want Tom Platzinum, but they fly me in. They know that I handle Tom's food. I'm the one that makes sure he gets his rest. I make sure when he gets that microphone in his hand that he's really healthy. And now people are starting to get wind of wanting me to come in. And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm retired." I retired in 2009. So we used to do a seminar together called... it was for a company, and we taught together. And I did a thing called Imagine. And it was no direct hit to John Lennon's song, but now that I think about it, that song really is what I've done, what I really believe, what I'd like to do for the rest of my life, is to bridge gaps in countries. So if we all got along, it would be really great. But that when I met Tom, and now he's actually, when he turned 53, he actually did 315 for reps, which he could not do when he could not do when I met him
Yeah.
at 43.
Yeah.
10 years later, he was able to reach his goals in his squat rack again.
Did it when I was 50, and I did it when I was 60 as far as 315 for 15.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like the old days, Kyle. The old days, 50 reps with 315, but I'm not comparing it to the 1980s. I'm comparing it to, 2016.
Well, there's a big age difference, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of years difference. But
How many 50 and 60-year-olds do you know that can squat their weight for reps, period, not 315?
But I work with guys on pure, absolutely pure technique, which is probably maybe got 1 or 2% of the population in fitness that seems to have pure technique, as I was taught it. And that's one of the things I work on, and really to this day enjoy working with people on.
Wow, it's really fantastic. Okay, Oscar Fleming, do you have a question for Tom or myself?
Actually, no, I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Thanks, Fleming. Thanks for participating.
I rather have questions for myself that I can't answer, but I really don't know any questions to ask. I already know so much about you.
Oh, that's true. How long have you been with me, Fleming?
Soon 7 years.
Wow.
I know, 7 years. So he's got an earful.
I had no idea that you were philosophical and into poetry. That's fantastic. That tells me a lot.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, I have been doing that ever since I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I wrote poetry in school
Yeah.
whenever I was bored.
You should read some of his work when he was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started my video game career when I was 2 years old, so
Yeah.
I had something that's a little bit longer than the other. But when it comes to poetry, I sometimes have really big
Do you paint?
lockdown. Yes.
Do you paint or do sculpture?
He writes.
Right?
Not sculpture nor painting. I just write
Right.
down
Uh-huh.
lyrical poetry, words.
Literary.
Wow.
And I also are training for haiku poetry as well.
Haiku.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, that's fantastic.
I
Wow.
know. Okay, Mitch, I'm sure you have a question for Tom.
Yeah, I see your name is the Golden Eagle. What's the story behind it?
Yeah, what is that story
Okay.
behind it?
Really? What's the story there? What's the deal there?
Good question, by the way. Excellent.
Back in the early 70s, in the late 80s, or in the middle 80s too, we all had characters. Like Robbie Robinson was the Black Prince. He was a black man. He was known as the Black Prince. He carried himself in a very way of royalty. He almost sort of emitted royalty when he came on stage. Arnold was the Austrian oak. Dave Draper was the blonde bomber. Who else? Danny Padilla was the giant killer.
The giant
he was 4'5",
killer, right.
5'5", but he was known as the giant killer.
What was Ed Corney, Daddy? He was the greatest poser.
Ed Corney, who was Cha's dad, basically.
Yeah.
He was known as the greatest poser ever, and he still is.
Yeah, he's still number one in the world to this day. Who else? Frank Zane.
Frank Zane.
Was the chemist.
The chemist, I wasn't going to say.
Yeah.
He'd get in shape over a weekend,
Yeah. Well, he was ectomorphic, too, mostly.
He could do it. He'd lay in the sun. He knew just what to do, what to eat. He'd look like Friday night he was sort of fat. Monday morning he was perfect.
Yeah, okay, so how did you...
how did I get to the Golden Eagle? So I was trying to basically come up with a similar logo or trademark. It was a lot like wrestling back then. All like the WWE or the WWF as it used to be called. The Golden Eagle, I should say, on the way over to Australia in the 1980 the Olympia. I was going over to Australia, and I was reading Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Very short read, but a very philosophical read, Fleming, and it meant a lot to me at that time, into my life and what I was doing. And I thought about, I can't be known as the golden seagull. That sounds sort of, not real masculine.
The golden seagull.
Sort of. So I asked my dad. I was talking to my dad one day, and I go, "What do you think about, logo and identifying name?" He goes, "Why don't you the eagle? The eagle is America and flying higher than soaring and never saying no and never stopping." And so I go, "How about the golden eagle?" And we confirmed that. And so in my advertising, we all had ads in the muscle and fitness magazines back then. We sold training manuals and things like that. So I identified myself as the Golden Eagle. And sure enough, everybody, when people introduced me, the Golden Eagle, that was my stage name, if you will. And it stuck with me, as the others had their identifying character traits stuck with them too. So,
and then you were blonde on top of that.
I had golden blonde hair,
golden blonde hair.
The Golden Eagle, that guy, But it was something people remembered, and I'm still sort of, I guess, called that to this day.
Mm-hmm. True. Good question, by the way.
Cha has been talking about how you are also associated with the WWE sometimes. And I haven't wanted to ask you if you ever have been wrestling before or ever considered doing wrestling.
Good question. I was never a wrestler. I was recruited in 1990 by Vince McMahon, what was then called the WWF, and now is called the WWE. I was recruited...
the Federation.
Yes, the Federation. I was recruited as a corporate individual, and my role was to be the liaison between the talent and the front office, which was Vince, okay? And I was basically emulating, and my job description was to do what Pat Paulson did for the WWF at that time, and be that guy who was ex-talent, but yet was in the office as well. And Vince's idea then was to create a new bodybuilding federation. So he needed somebody who was recently retired, who had the following of everyone in the sport, and I guess that was me. And I wish I was doing it now, because back then I was 30-something, and I wore Hawaiian shirts every day, lived on the beach, and I went to Connecticut, and I said, Vince, I can't move to Connecticut and live in New York and go back and forth to Connecticut to New York, and I'm from the beach, and but he wanted to do it. He wanted me there, and he was very supportive of me moving there and living bi-coastally for a while. And so I would fly to New York every Sunday night, and Friday night I'd fly back to California. It went on for about 3 years, but I learned a lot about corporations and business, and it was probably one of the best experiences in my life. I was very uncomfortable, but it's like the gym. When you're uncomfortable is when you grow. And that's what I want people to realize. But that's a really good question.
Very good.
Right. So ever considered doing wrestling?
I sort of had in the back of my mind that it'd be kind of fun to do. And Ric Flair used to come over to the house when I lived in New York, and he'd come over to the house and have those big, he had a Rolex watch on that was like the size of my head, It was like diamonds everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, Rick. But I sort of, in my head, I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. I'd sort of enjoy it because I got to know everybody in that sport. But I never did it. I just, for various reasons, I was not ever a wrestler. And people like, when I was in Gold's Gym during the 80s, there was a guy named Jim Hellwig. And he was training for the Mr. USA. It didn't turn out well for him. He really wasn't that successful in bodybuilding. Later, he went to wrestling, and he became known as the Ultimate Warrior. So I knew all the guys, and they were in the gym with us, and that's why I got involved with Vince. And it was a great experience, And I, as much as in the back of my mind, I thought about wrestling, I wasn't groomed to be a wrestler. In the back of my mind, it was a nice idea, but I had other things that I had to do first.
All right. So if we turn back time, before everything, would you even consider yourself trying wrestling? Yeah,
sure. I mean, I would consider it.
You lose when you wrestle me. What are you talking about?
But the opportunities didn't present themselves. I did not go to wrestling school, which a lot of my friends did. I mean, Hulk Hogan used to hang out in the gym with us, and Randy Savage was from Michigan. When I trained in Michigan with the weightlifters, Randy Savage was in the audience, and he would do his thing. He passed away, of course, but I was always around wrestlers, but I always wanted to emulate, as a young boy, Arnold. In my mind, I was going to California, and I was going to train with the masters of the sport during that time. That was Arnold and a guy named Dave Draper, who was known as the Blonde Bomber. blonde bomber.
Beautiful body. Beautiful.
Blonde hair, the girls on each
Beautiful.
arm. And when I was 10 years old, I think, that's what I'm going to do right there. The beach,
Beautiful.
palm trees, the sand, the ocean. It's like, I'm going to do what this guy does. And so my whole career Flammy was like, you've seen the Night of the Living Dead, right? The movie, Night of the Living Dead.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you know what a zombie is, right?
We killed them. I told you last night.
You got to do zombies in your game. That's right.
Yeah.
And back when I first came to California, we were all around the world. There was many of people like myself. We were anointed zombies. We just sort of came to California with no money and no real plans other than to go to the same gym together. And it was a strange thing. It's a strange occurrence how so many people from all over the world, from so many different countries, came to one gym to train together. Okay?
Yeah. There is a lot of famous names in wrestling. Do you have any favorite ones?
I like Cold Stone. I like
okay. Cold Stone, Steve Austin.
Steve Austin and Kevin Nash. My faves. They trained at the same gym we did in World before Joe Gold passed away. And these guys, I don't know, they're not, they're different with us, of course, than the audience. You got to remember these guys are really, really human. Mm. They're real people, and what they do on stage is nothing like what they do in real life. And I think, let's move on to some of our Facebook questions we haven't gotten to till now. John is asking, diet and training for a 52-year-old diabetic. I'm going to answer that,
Good.
John. Yes.
I don't want to go there.
Okay. It depends what type of diabetes you have, but I would really highly suggest that you speak with your doctor and ask your doctor for a holistic nutritionist. And from there, I think you're probably, anything that you, of course, for physical performance, your food has to be perfect. So that would be my suggestion to you. The only reason we're answering your question again, I think in our first episode, your question was cut off, so we decided to repeat it today. I would definitely talk to your doctor who's handling your diabetes and ask him if he has a referral for a holistic, keyword, nutritionist. Okay? Jeff wants to know, when you guys coming to Australia? I'll let you answer that one.
I don't know. It's not on the calendar this year.
No, but we were there.
Oh, yeah, we just were there last year. We were in Melbourne, and of course we always go through Sydney. We like Australia. I've always liked Australia.
The food is awesome.
Yeah, it is good.
I'll go for the food any day.
I remember walking on Bondi Beach years ago, and I was on the sand, and I had no shoes, and the sand would squeak. Your feet would squeak on the sand. I still remember that day.
Okay. Well, we're not coming to Australia this year, but we did come there in 2014. I believe it was November.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Miguel wants to know, for Tom, when it comes to hacks, I know you do them similar to sissy squats, but would you recommend solely this method or a combination of both these and traditional stance?
Okay, when it comes to hack squats, I would recommend not doing the version that I do on called sissy hack squats. I would keep your back flat on the machine. Do not raise your hips off the machine. Keep your back flat on the pad on the hack squat machine. Keep your feet like a duck and keep your feet low. And don't worry about the weight at all, if any weight. Now, the sissy version of that is something I sort of invented during the 80s prior to competition. Mm-hmm. It's very stressful on your knees. We bring your hips off the machine. You do a plie or a sissy squat there. And you go, your knees come up in the air and you go way forward. I would be very careful if ever you would adopt that, but it would have to be before an event only, to where you're trying to bring out extreme detail and muscle distinction. I would stay with the movement, the hack squat movement.
The pure movement, yeah.
Where the back's flat. Yeah. You go on your toes. Your feet are together like a duck. You go on your toes when you go down. You come back flat-footed when you complete the top of the rep. In other words, it could be stressful on the knees, and yes, I'm aware of that. Everybody sort of freaks out when they communicate with me. How could you do that? How come you don't get knee problems? Because of flexibility. My ankle, I have tremendous ankle flexibility. I was born with that and trained by Olympic lifters. I I practiced flexibility movements my entire life, and I never had knee problems. Never, ever had knee problems to this day. I should knock on wood here somewhere, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, you should. I think, too, you have to understand that when you do hacks, you have to have some sort of quad development, to do anything that what Tom is talking about, the plie. That's what I call them. I can do them because our leg development has always been there. That's probably Tom's and my our strongest part of our bodies. However, it should be the strongest part of everyone's body because your legs is what carries you to life every day. So be very careful. Make sure you have ultimate leg development before doing this kind of thing. What is it?
When George Hackenschmidt.
Yeah, Hackenschmidt,
when George Hackenschmidt invented hack squats, which I believe was the 40s, the 1940s, he squatted first. Everyone squatted first. And then he invented this movement which became known as a hack squat and developed into the modern day hack squat machine. Most machines nowadays are ineffective. It's like cars. Cars in the 70s were rocket ships. They sort of then became dogs during the 80s and the 90s. Now, the 2016 Dodge Charger out of the showroom floor is like a rocket ship again. And I'm hoping that the same thing happens to exercise machines, where they used to be effective, and then they became less effective and more along the lines of what's safe and what's aesthetically beautiful. But now I'm hoping they're like cars and they become more effective again. The old machines from the 80s and the 70s, boy, I wish I would have kept all those machines in my garage somewhere. Most gyms nowadays that are looking to recreate some of those old days with those old machines, and I think
what gets in the way of that is they want it to be safe.
Yeah, he wants.
And bodybuilding is not a safe sport. It's about risk taking. In order to get what you want, you have to take a lot of risk.
Kyle will enjoy this statement here.
Yeah.
An exercise usually is meaningless and has no value if a risk isn't involved.
Exactly.
If there's no risk in an inherent exercise, why do it? I mean, it's a calculated degree of success versus risk, but you never go into an exercise thinking risk only. It's like you expect success with a minimal degree of risk. But even crossing the street, there's a risk involved. You can get hit by a car. But what I'm getting at is an exercise that's effective has a risk.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, it's just like I was asked one time hey, Dr. Cha, we want you to check out this new line of equipment. We developed it for women primarily, and we put it out in this gym. We want you to go and give us your feedback. And so I went there, and I think they forgot that I am, really vertically challenged, under 5 feet. And I went there, and my feet never touched the floor. I was too small. And my reach is, of course, not really that long. And even Tom couldn't fit it. I don't know how big they think the women are. So I had the feedback that I said, I'd love to try it out, but the reach was too much, and the equipment line never developed because they kind of lost sight of the fact that people come in small sizes. And to ask me to test it, it's like asking an 8-year-old child to go in and try out this adult equipment. So I think you have to realize that some equipment, they made it very, very accommodating. And if you're going to build your body, you have to be bothered. In other words, you have to really go out there and really want it. Because if you are accommodated in an equipment, you might as well sit on a recumbent bike and sit there and just pedal at your speed. You got to be bothered. Bodybuilding is about being bothered and being annoyed that this is the way that you should be able to move. And you have to take risk, and you have to be annoyed. You have to be bothered until you master it.
There's an artistic sensibility, Flammy, to bodybuilding.
Yep.
Okay, it's like sometimes your poetry probably is meant, you have to bother people to get your message across and or motivate or enlighten them. The same thing I'm relating to my art. And we don't call it an art anymore. Modern day guys or practitioners or champion bodybuilders don't. It's a science. And it's the pain of the chains in the gym, but nobody talks about it as an art. Because in my day, it was an art in the gym and an art on the stage. You were an entertainer as well as an artist. Did we answer your question?
Yes. Miguel also.
Okay, for Cha, for you, what advice? This is for you, Cha. What advice would you give? Did we answer this last night? What advice would you give us as your key to continued success as the spouse of a bodybuilder? My wife, Janelle, kind of goes through spurts of dedicated support and participation. Didn't you answer that last night?
Yeah, I think the guest that we had asked that. Well, I don't know what your definition of success is. Tom and I have been together 18 years, and we still bump heads regarding what he should or should not be doing. I just can handle the food a little bit, but you have, and I guess you just have to understand the beast. You can't be with a competitor if you think you're going to ever be the number one. Because if he is still competing, or he, like Tom has been retired, he still wants to reach some goals for his stated age. You can't get in the way of that.
I just pull the car out of the garage as an analogy. I pull my body out of the garage and rev it up and remember the old days and do a couple of laps and put it back in the garage. That's my training nowadays.
Right. I think you have to understand and make it up front. I will, when it comes to the gym, I know in my heart and my soul that the gym comes first. And it doesn't mean, let me explain that. It doesn't mean that I'm not important to Tom. It just means that I know where I am in his life when it's gym day. And yeah, it takes a few days before and a few days after. Before he has to plan it, and a few days after he has to recover from it, and then it goes again. So you have to kind of like understand the beast, accept the fact that without the gym, Tom Platz would be what? The no golden eagle anymore? I mean, without the gym.
The non-eagle.
Well, he'll be like, he wouldn't be Tom and he wouldn't be Platz. Okay? So you when you marry someone or you're with someone and you've chosen to be with that person, you have to understand that you can't change anybody. Number one, you should never try to marry, I can make a difference. No, I didn't marry Tom so I could make a difference in his life. I loved him as he was. As quirky as he is about gym and training and all this stuff, you just have to accept it and just walk away. You really do. And you can't just say that you can do that. You have to do that, or you're going to fight forever, and you're going to eventually split up. So for myself, there's a negotiation in the house since I've retired. I'll let him do this if he buys me a game. That's how it works here.
You have to realize, Kyle, that the gym, the squat rack. Miguel, I'm sort of relating to Kyle too.
Yeah.
Because Kyle, I can feel him thinking. The squat rack and the gym gave me life. It gave me an existence. It gave me meaning to my life. It's my art. It's my sport. It's my science. It's my philosophy. It's everything to me. And everything I do to this day, and outside of the gym or the squat rack, I learned from the gym how to do it. In fact, last night I sort of alluded, and I always mention to my guys I work with, does the gym imitate life, or does life imitate the gym? And when one of my guys I work with does a great set of high reps with a heavy weight, it's like, this will solve all of your problems. And I really mean that and live by that.
Well, that's a good thing that you said that, because that's the second thing.
Okay.
He's looking for support from his wife. She goes through spurts of dedicated support and participation. She has a cap. I have a cap too when it's too much of this. And but if you are still competing, she has to uncap herself and know what it takes to go through prep. Prep could be 20 weeks long. Yeah, that's almost 50% of a year, but that's what it's going to take. Does she want, and maybe you need to ask her, do you want me to be a champion, or do you want me just to go at this like a hobby? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she's got to come to a definition in herself. Tom has certain goals, and when he tells me what his goal is for this, like this year he has a goal for his 61st birthday. I know that goal is there. I know what it's going to take. I'm with him every single day. He comes home to me every single day. he has dinner with me every single night. And on the weekends when he can be here, he's here and we can watch a movie. There's got to be some sort of satisfaction to that. Just like,
one of the reasons I retired is to be
Exactly.
home more. When I was competing, and I'd be in Europe 4 months out of the year, and I'd be every weekend I was on stage, so I wasn't home.
Well, the thing is that even when he's home,
Yeah.
even mentally, physically he's home, mentally he really isn't. He's thinking about his next meetup. He's thinking about his next coaching thing. He's thinking about his next. But just be glad he comes home to you and that you see him physically. And that's going to have to be enough if, Miguel, if you are a competitor and you're trying to be a champion, ask her, do you want me to be a champion or not? Now, if I've seen Up and Rising Stars and take advantage of it to where they'll go to the gym and they'll train and they'll hang out and they'll go out to eat with other people and they'll hang out and they're home in like 8 hours. That's a no-no.
Yeah, and I can't see
That's not
my wife making all my food, making sure the meals are ready, making sure my clothes are ready for the gym. I mean, you have a life too. You got to take a personal responsibility for it.
Yeah, if your gym time is being added on to social time without her, no. You do your thing at the gym, you come home to your wife. Because that's what Tom does. He doesn't hang out with people. He doesn't hang out and socialize after the gym. If you're going to the gym to do your business, she's got to understand that you need that focus with full support. But if you're socializing after gym time, no. Well played, but no. Okay? This is from Iron Andrew, our friend in Facebook.
Yeah.
What's been your proudest moment?
What's been my proudest moment? You probably would assume I would say the 81 or the 86 Olympia, where I had that symbiotic relationship with the audience all at one time, and I moved my toe and the audience went crazy. It was fun, but that was not my proudest moment. It was one of my most important moments in the sport. I would have to say my proudest moment is twofold. Getting married to Cha and committing myself to life with her, for better or worse, much like the squat rack, much like a self-promise of the squat rack. And when I retired, I decided that everything else, bodybuilding would come second, and everything else that came second during my career would come now first.
Lies. Those are lies.
But I have to say, beyond that, one of my proudest moments, besides being connected with Cha in a spiritual way as well, is working with young men and guys. Some of the guys I train, strength coaches, CrossFit coaches, strength coaches, and having them realize.
The high school coach too. Oh my God, that was so fantastic.
Have them realizing the importance of the squat rack to their life, to their marriage, to their family, and how it translates. And being able to just get that message across, it's like my work is done, and I feel complete, if you will. More so than just winning, the Mr. Universe. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have. He asked me the same question. Shame on you, Iron Andrew. I'm going to talk to you on Facebook in a bit. I think I've had too many moments of being proud. I have individual. I'm proud of all of my members, all 25 that's in my gaming clan since I made it in 2009. I'm proud of myself and MKB version of getting quad 9 7 times, which was max VR. I'm proud of everybody growing up and finding a place in life, whether a new job or first job or first child. And recently I experienced having the honor and the opportunity to work on a baby of 14 weeks old by sending distance healing. And now he's doing awesome. My proudest moment, I have to say, when I gave birth to my daughter, and she was so tiny, she was like a live doll, and I was such an inexperienced mother. Having the opportunity to take my mother's ashes to Haleiwa, North Shore, and sending her out to see what she wanted. That was a proud moment for me. I did that on my birthday. Gosh, there's just not one single moment that stands out in my head. And getting married to Tom, our wedding could not have been more perfect. Could not have been more perfect. We wrote the whole ceremony together. We wrote our vows to each other. We had a friend that is a singer. He came in and he sang all of our favorite songs that I grew up with as a child by Nat King Cole and Perry Como and Andy Williams. My mother cried. I made my mother cry, and that was a proud moment, yeah. She said, "You brought your father alive today. He is here with us." So I have to say our wedding, too, was an extremely proud moment. So we just don't have one. When you live 60 plus years,
It was me.
You have to really, really understand that you should not only have one proud moment. It's basically what we're saying. You should have an accumulative of hundreds, actually. I think the next one is from Grant. Hello, Grant. Tom.
Okay.
Did you ever use any kind of sports supplements during your competition years, like protein powders, carb powders? There's carb powders?
Yeah.
Vitamins and herbs.
Not very much. Okay. During my competition
What does that
years,
mean, not very much?
I used to endorse stuff, but I never used it, to tell you the truth.
Okay, did you ever put anything in your mouth?
Yeah, I did. Protein powders, meat protein and things that came in powder form. I was sort of popular back in the old days, but not really. But
Didn't you do like liver pills?
Liver pills, yeah, desiccated liver pills. We used to take like 100 a day. That was like
100?
Yeah, seriously, that was pretty good stuff.
Why don't you just buy a liver?
Well, I did that too.
That would have been cheaper.
More is better back then. I thought so, anyhow. It's not. It isn't. More is not better. Usually, it's the opposite. But I was never. I'm not a big believer in sports supplements. Okay, I know it runs the industry.
But did you use any over your competition years? What did you use?
No, I didn't use anything during my competition years. No.
Okay, that was the question.
Okay, that's the question. Yes.
Okay.
Cha, a question for you this is from Grant. Were you attracted to Tom's hyper-developed physique upon first meeting? Or were you indifferent to it? You think it was too much?
Okay. When I first met Tom in 1984, he reminded me of a troll doll. No, I was not attracted to that. I'm not a physical person. I don't look at people physically. I look at their mentality and the way they think and what they say and how they are and how they feel spiritually. I look for a person that's really committed to a spiritual growth, that they walk wanting to know more and understand more and feel more for others, not for themselves. I didn't really notice Tom's physique because I'm just not that way. I'm not really a physical type person. Was I attracted to him? No. I got to meet Arnold and Louis also in the same gym. We were all training in a World Gym in Venice. So I really didn't think about his muscles or anything. I didn't know anything about bodybuilding competition. So, I was into football at the time and soccer. So and rugby. Those were my thing. So I really can't say it was too much or too little, mainly because I didn't notice. Tom from Rapsanu.
Wow.
How did you make money in bodybuilding?
Okay. Back in the 80s, I should say the late 70s, Arnold retired, went into movies, and I was the new kid on the block. I just came out of college, and I was arrived in California. So he pretty much gave me the ball and said, run with it. And I wanted to be the businessman as well as the guy in the gym. Most bodybuilders in the gym, they don't want to travel every weekend. They don't want to go to Europe 3-4 months out of the year. But I did. And many people have said to me, for a guy that wanted to win the Olympia as bad as you did, as much as you did, why did you travel around the world so much and go on stage so much and do so many speaking engagements and seminars and things? Because I love being around the people that gave me life. Everyone in the industry, they looked at me. I wasn't the most genetically gifted character, but I was the working class guy from the neighborhood back east, and they gave me energy, and it was my responsibility to explore that. And so staying with the question, what was the question? I made money from exhibitions and seminars, and later I owned training equipment companies, and that was my mainstay. It wasn't the contest winnings. It was primarily going on stage every weekend and going to Europe 3 or 4 months out of in the year. Europe 3 or 4 months out of the year, and going on stage every weekend in the States. I was paid very well to be the Golden Eagle, as you noted. Okay. You don't like that, right? I was paid to go on stage and perform.
Yeah, naked.
Okay.
I know.
You know,
I got it.
To show my legs, even though I retired, I would still go on stage, and people would
He
say,
would go to a show.
We'll pay you anything you want just
and
to show us your legs.
And they would say, we'd like to, we have a really special guest in the audience, Tom Platz, and he'd go on stage and drop his pants. Duh.
After about 30 years, I decided it was time to stop dropping my pants. Okay. And I think I dropped them at her wedding to show my legs, and I said, "That's it. Never gonna do drop my pants again." And
at any venue.
So that was it. I retired for a reason.
Okay. This is from Tassos. Tom, what was your protein intake while you were competing off stage and contest prep?
Okay, usually between 200 grams a day, maybe 190 to 250 grams a day of protein. It was never real high. It was never real low. But I figured right around 200 or slightly less was my pre-contest intake. But in the off season, it was never higher than the low twos. That was enough. I had enough carbohydrate. I had to make sure I had carbohydrates and fats in there as well. Fats weren't that predominant in the 80s. In the 90s, I brought in more dietary fat to my diet. I added butter and animal fats. I trained much better, looked much better. My skin was better. And so I realized the importance of fat in the diet as well. You need everything. When I was a little kid, when I was training in this gym with the Olympic lifters, and I was experimenting with different diets and bodybuilding, the gym owner, Tony Armento in Detroit, used to say, "Why don't you just eat a little bit of everything?" And I said, "Well, I can't do that. I have to go on either high carbs or low carbs or high fat or low fat." And Tony was right. Tony was very right. Tony Armento was right back in Detroit when I was a young man in the 70s.
Okay, guys. Well, that comes to an end. Wow, time really flies when you're having a blast. Thank you so much for asking your questions. Thank you, Kyle from Taiwan, Oscar from Sweden, and Mitch from the Netherlands for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
All right, it's a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Great having you here.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Tom. Bye, Shaw.
Bye.
Yeah.